Good morning. You'll see I have a weird background. I'm having some motivational problems because I'm stuck. For some reason, my microphone is not working on my computer, and I had to go to my phone, and it wasn't working the way it was supposed to. And I was losing my motivation. Totally not really interested in any of this because it wasn't working easily. I got stuck, and I realized that I could do it on my phone. And so that's where we are. So that's my story. And we're going to talk about motivating me when I'm stuck. All that and more in episode 937 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote provides an opportunity for business owners and leaders to discover what is real for them and to be impacted by what is real for others. That is the Renegade way. Let's get real. We all face challenges and get stuck occasionally and are looking for an antidote. Each weekday, this show dives into a topic that may have you stuck, frustrated, and uncertain. Our goal is to share our value in an effort to help you find that one thing, the antidote to your challenges, so that you can get results and make more money. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
I'm just lovely.
You're a little frustrated, aren't you?
A little frustrated because I can't figure out what's going on. Usually I know what's wrong, and today it's not. Whatever it is, it's not working very well, and it's frustrating me. And so I lack motivation.
Well, that can happen when you get stuck, or something that you usually know how to figure out, you're unable to figure out. It's a challenge.
Yes, apparently. And it's funny how these episodes always seem to tie to my life very closely. It's almost like we pre-script them. I wish we did sometimes so I could know what was coming.
In your life or on the show?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Yes, it's an interesting topic. I think motivation is, I think one of the biggest challenges is one thing if you're in a team. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. There are others around you. There are other things happening. There's other things going on that can help you sort of reignite that motivation. Or maybe you have a boss, supervisor, someone who is directing you that can put enough fear in your heart or enough inspiration that helps you get unstuck and motivates you. I think sometimes when you're by yourself or you're in a role that you don't really have a lot of peers around you, it's hard to find those things that get you excited and motivated to take whatever the next step is that you need to take to get unstuck.
Yeah, I was at a networking event a couple weeks ago where someone described herself as being really lonely. She said that she used to be a teacher. And as a teacher, there were always people around her. And she could bounce ideas off them. She could commiserate with them. She could celebrate with them. And suddenly, in the last year, she became a tutor. And as a tutor, she felt like she was all alone. She said she didn't have people to bounce ideas off of. She didn't have people to talk to. It was interesting because at this networking event, I think most of the people were business owners and most of them felt alone, but very few people articulated at a meeting. And when she said it, there was this like almost a collective gasp, like, you said the thing no one wants to say that everyone feels. And it was really interesting to see people's reactions to that and reactions to her, because there were some of the people in the chat. This was an online meeting, and some of the people in the chat were like, "Oh, you'll get better at it. It's no big deal." And there were other people that were saying, yeah, that's a real issue. That's something that you face, and you have to figure out strategies to overcome it. And I think that's one of the things as a leader as well, not just a business owner, but especially if you work with your colleagues and then you get promoted and suddenly you realize that Friday lunch that you had with all your colleagues, you can't really do that anymore. It's a different animal and you're suddenly alone. You're eating lunch alone. You're holding your own counsel a lot more. And I think that's really difficult to stay motivated in that situation, because you can get stuck just because you don't have the usual network of people to chat with. And I think that's one of the real things you and I found when we started our businesses. And that's what really brought us together, was the idea that, hey, I can talk to this person who's going through some similar stuff. I can be open and honest with this person, and warts and all. We talked very openly about the revenue we were generating, about some of the struggles we were having with our family, some of the things going on personally, professionally. And one thing led to another. And then COVID came and we started this group. And our goal really was to give people that outlet so that you don't have to feel alone. And that's what our Renegade Success Network, that's what this podcast, that's what everything you and I have done over the last couple of years together has really been all about, is finding ways to help people stay motivated when they're stuck, because it's lonely and it's difficult. And anyone who says it's easy and they don't have these struggles, you're lying to yourself. Because every person I've talked to, sooner or later, if you get to know them a little bit, they're like, yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm really scared. I'm really worried. Yeah, I wish I had someone I could talk to. And every client I've had, same thing. A couple minutes into after they commit, it's like, so let me tell you about this thing I didn't mention before. It's always something good. I mean, it can be anything from, yeah, my wife is about to get my company because we're going through a really bad divorce, to I've never really been confident in the decisions I make, and I'm really scared that I'm going to screw this all up, and everything in between. And I've heard that from leaders as well. And when I've been a leader, I've had those same fears. It's that whole imposter syndrome thing. And so it's really hard to stay motivated when everything inside of you is saying you don't know what you're doing and you have no one you can talk to.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder if I don't think everything inside of us is saying that. I think, though, that the voices that say it sometimes become a lot louder when something doesn't go the way we thought. Like this morning, you're somebody who is pretty technologically savvy.
Thank you.
Until this morning. And so even someone who has a lot of confidence in what they do, when things get stuck and you can't figure it out, and it's not just, whether it's with technology, whether it's with a problem you're trying to solve, whether it's with an approach you're trying to offer, it's hard to do it on your own. We're working on a project that we're going to unveil soon. And we've been tossing around some things about it. And it's kind of hard when you have limited perspective, so you're not getting as much input as you might be able to get, and you don't know where to go to get it. That's the challenge. And if you don't have that, you just have yourself telling you, well, you should be able to figure this out. Why can't you? Maybe you're not as smart as you think you are. Maybe you're not as technologically savvy as you thought you were. And so it can be really easy then to lose the motivation to try to figure it all out, because you don't have any sort of external value being added that allows you to find the clarity that you're looking for.
If you think about it, we grow up in an environment, most of us go to school in a school setting where we have a lot of people and a lot of classes. It's a collective discovery, right? Someone says an answer, that's the right answer, congratulations. Someone else says the right answer. Someone says wrong answer, and they say, okay, Bob, can you help Susan? And so you get used to this collective environment, and then you go through school and you have all these people around you. And if you go to college or you go out into the work world and you're a beginning employee, you might be apprenticing, you might be shadowing someone. You've got people who are mentoring you, tutoring you, helping you through all the obstacles at work. And then suddenly you decide that you're going to become a leader, or they assign you the leadership role, or you become the owner of a company. And suddenly all those resources that have been there all through your life, they're gone. And
they're
on top
different.
of that, for me, one of the big challenges was I felt like I had to have all the answers. If I couldn't solve it myself, I wasn't entitled to be the owner of a company. I really thought that being the owner meant you figure it out by yourself. And that really slowed me down for a long time.
Well, I think because we think others have figured it out we watch them sort of, but we only see part of it. Even as you know that conversation you were sharing about growing up, we're in doing our own stuff, trying to figure our out, and we think the teachers have all the solutions, and that they never get stuck or frustrated or unmotivated. They just are always, and because we don't see the behind the scenes of what happens when we all leave and they're in the classroom alone with their head on their desk trying to figure out, what am I going to do with this group? Why can't I get through to this person?
Or counting the days till the end of the week or the year or the month till the
Right.
next day off.
Sure. Where maybe they feel like, okay, when I have a time to take a breath, I'll be able to find some clarity around this. And again, I think that's sometimes can happen, and many times it doesn't. You know, and I think that's one of the real values of, you know, having a coach or a mentor is you have somebody that you can go to. And so you don't have to feel all alone when you're stuck, or even having a really close peer. You know, I think that many times the challenge is when we get in those leadership roles is we don't have peers, or we can't figure out how to identify them, or we feel like, wow, I'm not really a leader if I have to go to a peer to find the solutions to the challenges that I'm facing or where I'm stuck. And so we often don't go seeking for those kind of relationships. I mean, I think fortunately I was always someone who was comfortable sharing or asking questions that I didn't know the answers to or was struggling with the answers to. And so I was almost always, I figured out that that was a really valuable tool for me to have as a peer who I could, when I was stuck, I could go to and have a conversation around to get me remotivated, to help me get unstuck. And I think, unfortunately, so many people, as you said, think they have to have all the answers once they get in a leadership role, and then realize they don't, and don't know what to do about it. And they're almost afraid to go and find someone who could potentially be a coach or a mentor or a peer, because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing.
Well, you and I had the experience a couple of years ago where we were both doing presentations, and one thing led to another. And I think it was your presentation that we talked through together. And I think it altered the way you approached it in some very powerful ways. And then I know we did that with some of my presentations. We've started to do that with our big presentations where we'll just run through it to the other person. Hey, here's the first slide. I'm talking about this. Second slide, I'm going to do this. Third slide. And I think two heads is better than one. And we both benefited from just that simple, hey, okay, what if you considered, or here's an idea that might work. Not telling the other person what to do, because I think that's one of the things that people get frustrated by, is the idea that if you take someone else's help, you're required to do what they say. And,
or that they're just going to tell you what to do, not help you.
And many people will, because they'll be happy to tell you. You know, years ago, I took some fiction courses, and you turn in a short story, everyone would critique it, and then they do a critique in the class, verbal critique. And there was always the person, every class, who would be like, so I really, really like your story, but your main character is a guy who works in an auto shop. I really see it as a woman who works at a nail salon who's got 3 children, divorced 3 times, not a guy who's married. And they would totally rewrite your story. And it would be like, okay, that's your story. Thank you. I'm really comfortable with my story. Is there any feedback around my characters, around my story? And I think we do that with people a lot if we're not careful, because it's like, well, I would do this. If I were you, I would do this. And first of all, we can't know what the other person's going through. And second, and you and I know this from coaching, there are often reasons why someone's doing what they're doing.
Sure.
And when you start to understand the reasons and the logic, it helps you better understand how to help that person understand what their own logic is. Because there's a logic to the way I operate. And there are times where you say to me, hey, Bob, this is you.
There's a logic to the way you operate?
Well, yesterday when you said to me, oh, you don't have a busy day. Oh, boy.
Sure.
You know that about me. And rather than saying, hey, Bob, you have an unbusy day, you should take the day off. You know, an unbusy day for me is a worry for me. And you were trying to help me with that. And that's where a good coaching relationship or a good mentoring relationship works, because the person helping us is coming to the table, trying to support us, understanding us, not telling us what they would do, not doing it for us, not challenging us to be like them, but asking the questions that lead us to figure out ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I had as an example of that, I had a graduate assistant along a while back in one of my roles, and oftentimes, and there's someone who was trying to learn the industry, it was the fundraising industry, and so they would draft the letter, and I would just edit it and hand it back to them. And at one point, fortunately, because this was a learning lesson for me, they brought it in and said, hey, I appreciate your feedback on this. And, one of the challenges I have with this method of feedback is just editing and giving it back, is I'm not learning. I'm not learning about why you would change this word from that word. And whether it was just wordsmithing, which, is what it is, or it was really the message that you were trying to get across and why this way was different. And it was a great reminder for me that if I am truly mentoring, or this person is someone who's trying to learn and I'm trying to lead them, it's not just enough to tell them what to do. You really have to help them figure out why it's being done the way it's being done, or why it has value in that way, so that they can then figure out how to put that into their practices. And I was just telling her what to do, rather than helping her learn why these were some of the ways that you would write a solicitation letter or acknowledgement letter or something like that. And I think that was a helpful tool for me as a leader, to remember that my way isn't the only way. And I don't think I was doing it in that way. Though it was coming off in some ways of like, well, I guess I don't need to learn it. I just need to be told what to do differently.
And you were unsticking them from that specific situation, but not helping them get unstuck from the next 88 times that situation would arise.
And it was likely to arise over and over and over again because they weren't sure why I was making those edits.
Right. And most of the things we get stuck on over and over and over until we understand the why.
Sure.
I think that's probably one of the lessons I've learned over the years that I didn't realize when I was younger, but the same things trapped me for a while now as did when I was in my 20s. It's over and over, and it's just like, okay, I'm a little better at it now, or now I'm better at seeing it and can at least recognize what it is and then start thinking about strategies. But so often we get stuck and it's like, okay, I'm stuck. What do I do? And I think it's sort of like the way out of a deep hole is not to keep digging. But often when you're clawing at the side of the wall and the dirt's falling and it's, you're just making the hole deeper and deeper and you can't dig out of it. And I think we do that all the time to ourselves. And that's where that other person saying, hey, Bob, why don't you stop digging for a second? Let's talk about what's going on here in the hole, and maybe we can come up with some strategies that I can help you figure out a way out of the hole. Right. And I think we all do it over and over and over. If you're someone listening or watching this right now going, oh, that never happens to me, call me up. I want to hear about it because I don't buy it.
Well, I would imagine they maybe don't recognize that as an issue, as being stuck. I can remember a time, and you've talked about this before, where there was something that used to get under your skin, and and it would just put you in a tailspin for a while. And I don't think you could even see it as being stuck because you were
Yeah.
caught in it. And until someone helps, so I helped you identify it as really it's making you stuck. I could have my own solution on how to get out of that,
Right.
but that wouldn't necessarily work for you. And so we worked on a way to help you get out of that being stuck and then moving on to something else and being motivated to keep moving forward, not spending your time focused on something that wasn't really helping you move forward.
It's funny, it happened to me yesterday, and I was stuck for about 30 seconds. And I said, oh, wait, you know what? Whatever. And kept going on. Yeah.
And maybe, and I don't know if you probably didn't do this, but you knew that there was a solution to get out of it because we
Yes.
helped you come up with a pattern to get a step to get out of it. And so I think once you figure out one pattern, one method behind how you get unstuck and get remotivated, it helps you the next time it pops up. You're like, oh, yeah. And even though I don't necessarily need to take that step, I know that I can get out of it because I have done it before.
Right. And I also know what gets me stuck with it.
Sure.
So as I saw this thing on social media, I immediately was like, okay, I can't spend much time on this. I need to move on.
Sure.
So,
do you have your one thing around motivating me when I'm stuck?
yeah, I think it's really, it's almost self-serving for what you and I do as coaches. And I don't mean it that way, but really, you can't get out of these things that you're stuck in alone. And so many people I see get stuck, and the more they try to get out of it, the more stuck they are. And if they're seeking help, often they're seeking help from people who aren't really able to help them, either because they're in different roles. So if you ask your spouse or significant other how to solve a business problem, they may have a perspective, but may not be well informed. It may be that they just want to tell you good things because they care about you, or they may be overly negative because they don't like what you're doing. There's a lot of biases that can come into it. And I found more and more as I get further along in my business, having outside influences who really support me and what I'm trying to do and aren't telling me what to do, but saying, okay, Bob, you told me this is what you want to accomplish. Does this fit with that? Or have you done that? You're one of those people. You're very candid with me. I think we've gotten to the point where you don't sugarcoat it much. And if you say to me, hey, Bob, hold on, is this really what you want to do? I know I need to stop and look at the situation. And I didn't always have that. There were plenty of people who would say to me, hey, Bob, you need to stop and look at what you're doing. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. And I'd just keep digging the hole. So I think that outside influence of just someone who really cares and understands what you're doing and why it matters to you can be so powerful in getting you unstuck, but also not just getting unstuck, but catapulting from what you discover when you get unstuck and applying it in really profound ways to really drive results.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think one of the challenges is that those closest to us sometimes aren't the person who can help us because they, as you said, sort of, they don't want to say the hard thing that we might need to hear because they don't want to, have, and I think that happens sometimes too, even in our office setting is, if you're a leader and especially if you worked at the same level and then moved up, well, now you have a different relationship with the people. And how do you effectively lead them, motivate them when you're in a different situation? And I think that that's one of the challenges that so often we get feedback from people who don't have enough insight that could either feed our being stuck or could help us potentially get unstuck. And we didn't talk much about this, but when I first was thinking about this, I think one of the challenging things about being stuck is getting restarted, obviously. And many times because we're not really sure why we need to get restarted or what's our motivation to get restarted, which is one of the things as we were sort of talking about this earlier, I was thinking, one of the really benefit things about, and I think why we, especially when we got started in the pandemic, was the idea of celebrations. And not as much celebrating what has happened or what is happening, celebrating the completion of an action. So, if in that situation we were talking about, is there was a way to, once you put this that was getting you stuck aside and took that next action, there was, okay, how do I celebrate the fact that I did that? Or in the case of, we talked at one point about a long time ago about your rowing. And it was hard for you to get motivated. You were kind of stuck in like, okay, I have this, I like to do it, and yet for some reason I'm not motivated to do it. And because we talked about celebration, it's like, okay, how are we going to celebrate doing it? It was with Bob's favorite drink on a Friday afternoon if he had done it so many times. And so there was that end goal that you had already established that, hey, if I do this, this is what's waiting for me at the end. And I think that, to answer sort of the question of when I'm stuck, how to motivate myself, to me, it's about how do we think about how we'll celebrate once we complete whatever it is that we're trying to do. And a lot of times we get stuck with things that are difficult or challenging or that we're not really good at. And so we do the best we can to figure it out, and then we get stuck and we're not sure what to do next. And so I think that if we can have some other something else motivating us, like, well, how are we going to celebrate when we complete this action or this task? It can really help us get through, or at least continue to look for solutions when we're stuck, and not just say, oh, yeah, I couldn't get there and now I'm going to give up. Because I think you would have been really disappointed if you had just in the middle of the week given up on your rowing and then and felt a little different about the celebration if you had done it at the end of the week.
So, Tom, if someone's stuck, we have a way today at 11 a.m. Eastern time for them to possibly get unstuck. We're having what I guess in college we would call office hours from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. today on Alignable in the Grow Your Small Business group. Tom's going to be available to answer questions, to provide feedback, to help you get unstuck, to take on whatever issue comes up. I've done a number of these on the Tuesdays, and we've had questions about how do I market? How do I manage my time? There was a really good discussion about the role of networking and building a new business. And someone even asked a really great question one week, and I provide some feedback, but others on the call provide some feedback around what is it really about being a business owner that makes it so much fun. So if you're looking at 11 a.m. Eastern time today, what's today, Tom, the 24th?
Tuesday, the 24th.
Yeah, so October 24th, in case you see this later, you missed it. But we're doing this every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And Tom, what time is it for yours typically?
I'm modifying that time, so
okay. We had a time and we've shifted around. But it's a really great opportunity to get some insight. Also a great opportunity to get to know some other people in the business community. And if you haven't been to Alignable, go to alignable.com. It's free. And I even know someone who wrote a book about how to use Alignable. So if you're struggling with that, reach out to me and I might have an ebook for you.
Maybe you want to put a link to that in the chat.
I could do that. I could really do that.
Here's two comments that I want to share. Steven,
okay.
When I was talking about celebrations, Steven said, like a contingent reward vision board.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call it contingent, because to me that almost is setting yourself up to be like, if I get it done. Rather, this is when I get this done, this is how I will celebrate. And I think to build that into your mindset, again, I think the words that we use can make a difference in how we move forward. And Jack is with us and shares. And anticipated celebration motivates me, which is good to hear. So thank you, Jack and Stephen, for sharing your comments. If you are listening to the podcast where there is no place to comment, please feel free to join us in our Sculpt Your Business Facebook group, where you can share your thoughts and ideas there. Or, as Bob shared, if you're an alignable person, another social media platform, we have a group called Grow Your Small Business. And you can be a part of our community there, where you can share your thoughts and ideas and benefit from the thoughts and ideas of others. So we look forward to seeing you in one of those two places. If not, just a reminder, we are off tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so we will not be live tomorrow. We will be back, though, with you Thursday morning, 7 a.m.-ish Eastern time, for our next episode of Today's Antidote.
Hey, until then, no matter what you do, wherever you go, however you need to do it, embrace the renegading you. It is so worth it.
Yes, it is. All right, everyone, go out and enjoy your day. We will see you soon.
Hey, you're probably wondering, why am I talking right now? There it is. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Tom. Are you ready to get real? I'm serious. Are you ready to get real? Are you ready to get results? Are you ready to make more money? Have the life you've always dreamed of? Run the business the way you've always thought it could be run? Or been the leader you want to be? If you said yes to any of that or all of that, we got you covered. Go to our Get Real, Get Results, Make More Money program. Ask Tom about it. Ask me about it. Go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. We've got a pathway for you to get where you want to go. It's not as hard as you think. We can help you get unstuck. We do it for people every day. We want to do it for you. It's easier than you think. Give it a shot.